Here we are.
What's up, Brian?
Hey, how's
How
it
you
going?
doing?
Yeah,
Well, we thought a lot about how we want to intro the video.
a little bit too much.
A little bit too much. It's something we have a tendency of doing with one another. I guess we could start with our ceremonial wave. Um, so this is an inside joke that we're not going to fill you in with, but it's something that we have together. Should we start with a basic formality so we can get through this checklist, and then
Of course, we're all about that.
yeah, we're all about formalities. Me and Ryan are very formal people.
Yeah.
Well, I did want to introduce Ryan a little bit, just to get maybe a little bit of an extent of the background of how you kind of arrived at this collection of poems, The New Organics for the Flickering World. And so why don't I just start with that? So here's your formal introduction, Ryan. Ryan Bree began shining mysterious and murky light on the multifaceted globe in the year of 1994, where he was born in St. Louis, Missouri. He often finds himself moved by the gentleness of art and yearns to be situated where angels and demons are allowed to play. He's the author of 2 published books, Information Blossoms, put out by Expat Press, and The New Organics for the Flickering World, published by DFL. He is also a member of both indie bands. First one is Penis Grenade,
Yeah.
and the second is the Photogenic Memories. Both great names for bands.
Thank you. Yeah, they're very different, but they're both very accessible music.
Mm-hmm.
Great
Without a
choices.
doubt. And I think one thing that's interesting is maybe for the two of us together is Ryan and I find ourselves both excited for the world, open to possibility, and sometimes morbidly depressed. And that's kind of how we connected in the first place, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's
And-
great.
Yeah. And so Ryan, maybe before we get into any questions, is there anything burning on your mind that maybe you want to start with and open up with?
Well, I was saving this for the end, but we can begin with it. Becky and the Birds is a great artist.
Okay.
I listened to her album on repeat to edit my next poetry book, which is called Paradox Healer. And that hasn't found a publisher yet, but they haven't been mean with me.
Oh, okay.
The responses have been very gently like, this is not for us. So I'm excited to change that eventually.
Are you welcoming like these gentle responses, or are you wanting more of a like tell me what you really think about it?
No, I think they really think it's good, but they just don't want it.
Ah, I see. It's just not the right fit.
It's not the right thing for them. And I think the universe will course the path, towards its existence, in that labyrinthian belly it's in right now. But I think it's chilling in a nice spot. It'll pop out when it's, got its mind to.
Yeah. And I mean that is one thing I thought a lot about with this work and getting to know you just as a person too, and specifically with this collection we have here today. I don't know if do you want me to do the first question out, or do you want to maybe read something from that to
Yeah, let's
situate?
read.
Go right ahead.
Reading is great.
Reading's good for you. More people should be doing it.
Yeah, always. This is I Light 40. All of my poems are titled I Light, like the I and then the light, which is the source of everything that we think right now. That's been the common conception anyway for a while, but this is I Light 40. A video sees me now, and who knew it first? The face of a thought exuberantly posed to accept the scan of a nanobird, dribbling sound like rain on a waterfall, synonym for all the things I could feel about you, and blossom heads collide in the water glass air.
It's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
One thing that's I think maybe unique with you, and I am really interested in not just the writing itself, but also, the person and where you were when you wrote not just that one, but the collection of these. And one thing you talk about we've talked about this before, is the different worlds that you've come to exist in throughout your life,
Yeah.
right? And you've had this interesting navigation with it of, yeah, finding this way to exist in sometimes multiple worlds at once, but also I even think with your family a little bit of, yeah, learning how to navigate in the worlds of others. But for you today, especially as the author of this, like when I read these poems, they come across as memories from a different world.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of wondering, maybe just to start, what do you think the value is in accessing a place like that, these different worlds that you speak about and write into?
Well, for most of my life, I'd been meeting people where they're at, and I'd been forced to, and I'd be forced to, like, okay, I'll do it your way, and walk off and just hate myself.
Mm-hmm.
But for this, I really wanted to be like, no, my way works. It's watertight. It's a ship out at sea, and I wanted to bring people on board. The people that are meant to come with me. And have a blast experiencing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that access is kind of a thing that all of our souls, all of our bodies are yearning for. They want
Mm-hmm.
to be able to follow through their thoughts to a trajectory that lands somewhere. And I mean, all these wars have been fought over water access, and
Mm-hmm.
um, it's just like I've been told, frequently by people in positions of so-called authority
Mm-hmm.
that, like, my mind doesn't work. And it's like, how can I produce a work like this
Mm-hmm.
if my mind doesn't work? It gets there. It just, I went through a period where I was very broken,
Mm-hmm.
and I needed that fundamental place that a lot of artists go to. They all go to that place, and it was a very isolating experience to be, like, in the wards and stuff, and trying to come up with my world, and just being bossed around about very trivial,
Mm-hmm.
bullshit that shouldn't ever be said. I mean, we're here to make something of this life, not to, like, order a bunch of people, like, I don't know, like.
No, and like on that note too, like the present that you speak of, right, and this world you were able to access during that time, especially given what you were up against.
Yeah.
Can you maybe tell me a little bit about the setting you were in when you began writing through this and began finding your own way through this a little bit?
Yeah, so I started writing this in a nursing home for the insane,
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of Missouri somewhere, southern Missouri. I don't even remember the name of the town. And I was in there, and I was just sitting down at my place. I finally got a moment to, you know, be with myself in a way that wasn't disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting there, and I was like, you know what? I see an art book. I was thinking of, like, eyes and vision, and I was like, I have a very powerful vision, so maybe I can sculpt something out of this. And I immediately envisioned it belonging to Manny, my publisher of my first book, who didn't publish this, but he would have if he got around to it. But I envisioned him with a book titled I Light, that was basically just the idea behind all of these. The initial spark was to create a book that's similar to the way that I make drawings, which is kind of just like as a divining rod, let the pen go everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really driven to, you know, grow like out of this barren, people are being short with me, like gross, very, undignified um setting. And that's where this was birthed, was conceived in in a setting that was very confrontational. People
Mm-hmm.
were screaming all the time. I'd be recording videos on my phone of me playing guitar, and there's, girls yelling at the retard, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I don't know. That's how it happened.
Well, and I know from our work together as well, just a little bit in this, is that it was also a really interesting time period in your life, right? Like you came to kind of define maybe it's the publishing of the work and getting it out there of, and I'm thinking specifically in the context of what you were saying earlier, that it was almost like the world was trying to shape you in a certain way,
Yeah.
and there was kind of maybe not a single moment, but a series of moments where like enough is enough,
Yeah.
and what do I want to shape instead here, even in the midst of people screaming, confrontation, people in positions of authority maybe misusing some of their power and influence a little bit.
Yeah.
And you kind of name that as the poet's responsibility,
Mm.
right? And I know that the idea of bringing people in and changing the culture around you for the better is pretty important. And I'm wondering a little bit, do you have a sense in some way that you've come to accomplish that by putting this out there and making it available to others?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah, it's out there and it's mine, and it's something that, you know, I mean, the mystics will try for millions of years to figure out how this came to be. Um, but I realized um a shift that, it's not totally to my credit, but we were in a very chauvinistic period, maybe from like 2017 to maybe 2015 to like 20 22 or 3 or maybe 4, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, but we were in a very chauvinistic period where maybe it was just my world, but I was being bossed around, and maybe I just got connected with the right people. But I felt it suddenly became cool to access this inner world and have like this huge backstory. What is it? Lore? Yeah, lore. People have lore now.
Mm-hmm.
And, it became cool to have an inner world that you could offer to people in the span of like a year. Now it's cool for that. I mean, everyone's like, this is my world, like some people are like that,
Mm-hmm.
but I sense, a softness burgeoning,
Mm-hmm.
and that softness is really um, what we should be noticing in other people.
Did that softness call to you in a certain way that motivated you, or maybe even pushed you a little bit to go beyond just what was right in front of you and try for something new and different?
Yeah, oh yeah, it's always been there. Ever since I was a kid, I was at
Mm-hmm.
baseball games with my dad, and I'd just be like zoning out, looking in the outfield, and I'd be like, ah.
What did you experience in that moment of awe? And just that one example at that baseball
it
game with your dad.
it was like it was like I was experiencing my soul being able to it's tricky getting into this, but examining um examining its own capability in a way that's uninhibited by anything else. Like basically we have our perspective, our experiences, and we're lucky enough as human beings to have the ability to be like, this is my moment. And I'm trying to get everyone, you know, who's meant to come along to get there, and I've done the work myself, and I'm not trying to create a teaching that's like, this is how you I'm not writing a self-help book, but I'm just saying this is the end result. and um, you know, you can do this too in your own way because everyone's unique. They're not going to arrive. I don't want everyone to arrive at my conclusion. I want them to express their uniqueness in the form of whatever it takes, really. Just we got to get there.
Yeah, and that was an interesting. I think that's what was most intriguing to me when I was reading through this is that I think this is probably pretty dominant in today's world of there's got to be like one way to do something, or there's got to be one way to focus through it, or here's this one path that's right in front of us. Um, but when I came across this, I had a very different experience. Um, it was almost as if my world was opening up even more so versus other ones. It's more of an experience of things get closed down. I start to doubt what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, is that one of the hopes in this as well? Of like you're saying, like it's not a self-help book in the sense where you're just going to come across and have 10 things to do every day and maybe turn into a corporate piece of shit or something. But like instead, it's more of opening up the reader's own world and maybe
Yeah.
what's possible in their lives.
Yeah. There's so much media where you view it and then it's like, this director wants me to be this way. This book wants me to be this way. And you kind of adopt it for like a week or two and then you're like, what the fuck was I doing? And in my book, there's nothing wrong with that really. It gets you through life, but in my book, I really wanted to be like, this is a memory that we share together. Like, let's think about it. Let's process it. Let's, you know, just see what's really behind it for a second and enjoy it. Mostly just fucking enjoy it because,
Mm-hmm.
it's nice.
Well, and I think about that too. Of like, spent a good long time trying to figure things out, as most people hopefully try to do, right?
Yeah.
But in your particular case, there was a lot. It was different than most, right? The
Yeah.
people that were in charge of your life, that were in charge of some of the decisions that you didn't have as much agency over, that you kind of had to fight for throughout most of your life, and
Yeah.
the place that you've arrived to now, when you speak of the memories of being something to enjoy, when you now look back on this time period, now with this published, and even as we speak here, has that world of the present and the different worlds that you come to, is that something that's come to pass now that this book is completed? Or is it something that you're still kind of actively living in and wrestling with?
It's both. I mean, so the idea behind the book, The New Organics for the Flickering World, it has become kind of like a pet to me personally as an author because like it follows me around and I can notice like, hey, that's the that's my dog, that's it's around me now and I see it in various visuals or just existing, um, having my day and my nights and just being like it's there, and I notice it and I'm like, yes, I did this.
Mm-hmm.
And I had what wasn't my favorite motivator, but I was really a good motivator was to prove them wrong, to prove that you know my experience I had to prove that my experience was valuable, which is something that someone should never have to do.
Mm-hmm. And that in particular, Ryan, I'm thinking about where you've been, where you've arrived, and where you're going. Maybe you could tell me a little bit of, like if you could try to summarize this in maybe even just a few sentences, maybe, or even maybe it could be done in a few words of where you were presently drafting this compared to where you are today and where you're soon to be going at the end of the summer.
um well, when I was drafting this, it was like definitely like a people were everything was mobilized against me.
Mm-hmm.
I was, you know I was given a space. I was allowed to breathe, you know, in my
Mm-hmm.
fucking lungs.
Mm-hmm.
But besides from that, you know, everything was around me. You know, I was being ordered to go to these wards, being trafficked from this place to that. And, you know, I finally found something within. I started to take like therapy seriously, like but real therapy, not like, you know, not just like talking about my feelings, but like really getting into examining it like a scientist. Like, okay, so I was in the ward where people are screaming or everything, and I was like, what are my tools? What the fuck do I have to
Mm-hmm.
work with? And you know, I came up, you know, like a phoenix. You know, my favorite actor is River Phoenix,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just like, you know what? Like, if this doesn't work, then I'm out of everything. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's not my favorite place to be. Um, you know, uh, it's it's kind of like tacked on to my story, kind
Mm-hmm.
of. You know, but it's important nonetheless. Um, yeah,
Well, what did you come to? I'm thinking about this. You didn't have much to work with,
yeah.
right? And you talk about taking this thing seriously, and I mean that's a big question to ask: is what do I have right in front of me that can do this? And maybe before that, like like the motivation, yes, to prove them wrong, and we can get into that. But what did you come to find, maybe in your own life, that was worth fighting for in all this?
Well, love. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the typical thing when, you know, your heart is aligned with someone and you take that to a supernatural place. Like, that was in place for me. Like, that wasn't broken.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hardly broken with anybody except for, you know, people that boss people around, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was in place. So I was like, you know what? I got a lot to work with. And, um, you know, my experience with art is very profound and singular because nobody views art the way that I do. You know, it's like I talk to other people about, you know, the stuff we all have in our zeitgeist,
Mm-hmm.
and they they have their unique perspectives, and you know, nobody agrees 100% both ways. So it's interesting to kind of narrow that down and file it down to, you know, for me it was an exact science. Um, and you know, a fellow writer on DFL, Michael Borth, he recently coined a term with me, um, calling me like a scientific and religious bacchanalia. Um,
What does that mean?
so he was talking. He's talking about astrology. He's a Leo, by the
Mm-hmm.
way, everyone.
I'm a Leo.
And he was talking about astrology. He doesn't know anything about astrology. This
Mm-hmm.
guy.
Yeah, I don't. But I know I'm a double Leo, and that scares people sometimes.
And yeah, we were talking about my Pisces sun and my Saturn Pisces being both in the first house, and that's kind of like at odds with each other, but also very powerfully rooted in the mutable self.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, scientific and religious bacchanalia means like I have a Saturnine thing going on, which means like I am a teacher, I'm a monk teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and basically my ideas about learning and about the way we should interact with each other peacefully, but also progress things. You know, we have to get along and progress things. That's very important in my personality. And I feel stuck a lot of the time, and I feel like, you know, why aren't people saying what's on their minds?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we just opening up, expressing the thing? You know, why are we hiding it behind all this various shadows and mirrors and smokes? And, you know, why aren't we just saying the thing, you know, is what I get at a lot. And I appreciate people who are able, you know, to steer things, navigate things in certain directions. But I also like people who are just freely open. And, you know, maybe that's a unicorn. I don't know. Maybe that's like something that's a figment of my imagination. But I feel like at some point there has to be like an agreement where this is the thing that's cool. This is the thing that we enjoy, you know, and this is how we spend our lives.
And is that one of the hopes as well for anybody who comes across this, is to maybe either experience it while they're reading it, or to open it up so that they might experience in their own unique way as well?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I want people to, when they get the book, when they order the book, you know, to you know, open it, and I'm expecting a little bit of confrontation. Like, you know, people have their things that they bring, and they're like, what is this, what am I getting into? But eventually, throughout the course of reading it, be like, I'm steeped in this like tea, you know, something like that. You know, just like I'm all up around this. It's all around me, you know, and it's a world, you know. It's the new organics for the flickering world, you know. It's not just like you know, I don't know. I thought of something cool, you know, like a book you see in a on a bookshelf that's on the side of the street. That's actually kind of cool. But it's a whole world basically.
Yeah. And is this just one of the many worlds you wish to invite people into?
Yeah, wherever they want to go, I'm, you know, free access. You know, it's their choice. You know, I mean, you know, obviously the choices you make. You know, that's kind of the narrative we have now. The choices you make matter. So, you know, they'll get you in various situations, but you know, I would hope that anyone would be welcome to where they want to be.
And is this your welcoming?
Yeah, for sure. It's like, come here, you know, my house. You know, I've been coming to everyone else's house. Like, come to my house.
Well, right on, Ryan.
Yeah. This is the book I wanted to introduce. It's Anna Krivolipova's book, Incurable Graphomania. The reason I want to introduce that book to our discussion is I've been reading it, and she's very right-brained. Like, she'll make, it's a very artistic choice, or I don't even think it's a choice for her. It's just like a supernatural creature type thing that she is. You know, it's like very right-brained in the way that she'll be talking about some paranoid person, you know, trying to scheme, and then all of a sudden it's this beautiful jump from one sentence to the next, and it's just like this jump with like 10 billion connections to like, and suddenly you're in a swimming pool and there's flowers, you know, something like that, you know, just what my mind comes up with. But this right-brained jump is something I'm very interested in perfecting over the course of my creativity, because it's coming a lot up with me a lot more as I write fiction, like prose, not prose poems. Still, my mind is still in the poetry. But just really get into the present moment. Like, the present is jumping from here to there, and what are we bringing with it? What are we letting go of? And it's a constant battle of letting go of everything and just jumping into that next sequence that's just so delightful to find yourself in a new place. It's like, everyone wants to go traveling, you know so yeah.
So maybe think a little bit about what you want to pack while you're traveling somewhere. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's good probably for the first segment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ryan, I know you wanted to talk about this a little bit, and I had this, where your mind was going with what you wanted to bring out today was really interesting because I had a similar experience of wrestling over your work. And maybe before we get into this idea of rituals and you maybe explaining some of that, why don't you start with a poem from the book, and we can go from there.
Yeah, this is I Light 116. I am constantly in search of the heroic nonchalance that will win not just wars but hearts, and your brittle definition is stunning through a thin jacket of milk. When they stop talking like typewriters in fashion, we can laugh all the way around an apple juice bottle and remember a thing about the neighborhood where we blew apart a light. Somehow I think the combination of things you are is pushing me into a mirror no matter where I go.
Yeah, for me, there's I don't even know how to describe it. I don't want to put words on it that aren't yours, but maybe the experience of both listening just now, but also reading through this collection. One of the questions I've been kind of burning to ask is for one, the poems themselves, they do tend to feel a bit ritualistic. And I'm kind of wondering, maybe just to start, what is it that you've drawn on or drawn from in this idea of ritual and movement with that?
Well, it's tea.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing everyone's talking about now. That's the tea.
That's the tea. Okay.
And so for me, that's a real thing that has a lot of lore and history behind it, because when I was in high school, I had this girlfriend, and we would relate to each other by having tea parties.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always been a big thing in my life. Maybe when I was in college, I got lazy and I stopped cooking tea.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big dark period because of that. And it's just like, what the fuck was I doing? Um, but you know, I was in the ward in Missouri, and I couldn't make anything for myself. I mean, I think they had like iced tea or something that they served, and juice and stuff like that. But I kind of blocked all that out of my mind, for understandable reasons. Uh, Not that it's bad to look back on. It's just something that was there. But I couldn't make my own tea, and they weren't making it for me, and I was like, all right, fuck this, we got to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And
You drew the line at tea?
yeah,
The inability to make tea, that's where you draw the line.
hey, there are wars that have been fought over this. and I got out of there. I got into California, a place in Ramona, which wasn't a lot better. But every evening after we would do our groups and we would get back to our home that we had, I was kind of special because they would serve everyone snack, but they would make me tea, and because I had some and I wasn't allowed to make it myself. So I was being served tea, which is an ancient servant custom in the most undignified place possible, and I was having the most dignified feelings ever. I'm being served tea, I'm writing poetry, like this is where I'm at, and this is the craziness of the world. And in that moment, it's all working for me. It comes through on the page. I'm not uncomfortable at all. And it's in this position that people kill themselves because they don't want to go back to the ward. you know it's a really seriously disturbing place. And somehow I was able to navigate it in such a way where I'm like, this is a breeze. And in some way that's, my mom would say, that's dangerous thinking. But in a way, there's a lot that can happen to us during our experience on planet Earth. And, I think it's, in a way, it's up to us now it's up to us to start changing that. I mean, before it was kind of up to God. But we've kind of taken our downplaying a little bit too far. I think everyone, maybe I'm getting into something a little different here, but everyone seems to be downplaying everything, like it's just this, it's just that, and I think it's time. When was New Sincerity supposed to happen? That was a big thing in the 90s, and it kind of worked for a while. I mean, everyone loves the 90s still. As we're getting farther away from it, people are still saying the 90s was cool. New Sincerity was supposed to happen.
And what is that exactly?
That was David Foster Wallace's conception, where he was like, basically, he was noticing a lot of irony in the culture, and I'm not big on knowing what David Foster Wallace was about, so I don't know.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. But he was noticing a lot of irony, and he's like, what if we just cut through this? What if we just instead of having postmodernism, finally have an answer to postmodernism, where we're just kind of cool with things happening the way they are. Could be entirely different than his philosophy. So,
well, maybe that's what you picked up on. And you mentioned something a little bit earlier. I know for some, like going through this particular time period, especially in Ramona, that it's funny, right? Like you have this ancient custom, right, which is a dignified thing. And for you being in one of the most undignified places, a place where I'm certain you've seen, maybe we could call them comrades, fall to their own hands, right? Because of the way they were treated and what they were wrestling with. And I'm maybe wondering a little bit in that people may have their opinions of your mind, my mind, or your way of doing things. And that's perfectly fine. But for you, did being in a place, being situated in a place in Ramona, or really in any ward, did this shape your writing process in some way?
Well, it was very trial by fire. It's like being forged in the essence of a volcano. It's like it's extremely difficult. You are at a point where you can't really access your thoughts because of the natural way your brain progressed in modernity. And you're around a bunch of people that are in the same place you are, so their natural instinct is to feed into that. So just everyone is going crazy. And if you don't have an anchor, like, there's no way to get through it. And that's why you see so many people abandoned into these institutions where just like everyone has given up on them, but they've been thrown in a situation where it's literally impossible to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. And, I hope my story isn't like, hey, why we should have psych wards.
Okay. Sure.
but
But
it,
instead, yeah, what is the hope there? What follows that statement?
that we're able to cut through, you know, the fabric of, you know, society has been built a specific way for a reason, but it's always more important to get at what's behind that
Mm-hmm.
than to say, we have these structures and these structures will be followed to the letter. It's always more important to be like, hey, what's going on there? How are you doing? Um, do you need any help? Are you hungry? You want to grab a bite to eat? Just find ways. We have ample tools to celebrate life.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big thing I learned when I was Catholic, was how to celebrate life instead of just survive it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's I was going to ask a question about when you're writing these, were you trying to capture something fleeting or something in the distance or in that? But I'm even wondering, especially on that line, like, and you mentioned you're forged in a volcano,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
that's an impactful way to describe something, right?
Yeah.
But then the other one was this idea of an anchor. And was that something you were hoping to capture in all this, that this anchor for your own life, something to anchor upon, so that way you're not just surviving but maybe living life with a sort of a different purpose beyond, especially what was just kind of given and maybe forced onto you, of a certain way of doing things?
Yeah, it was weird. Um, I had always been kind of interested in alternative theories,
Mm-hmm.
but I was basically forced into adopting an alternative theory, basically forced into exactly where I wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
um, to craft this. And I don't know, I kind of lost it a little bit,
Yeah.
but I got started thinking about alternatives, and that's a big, um, I don't know, just fascination of mine, is
Mm-hmm.
like how to enact an alternate present. Is it possible to go to an alternate present? Um, and what are the ramifications for doing something like that? We live in a world where everyone's just kind of doing their own thing, but it's kind of just a magical place to think about. It's like, oh, how my cells are appearing in this life? Like, what is that? Is it changing reality, and can I have a positive impact? Not positive how all the therapy is talking about positive impacts,
Mm-hmm.
but having a real adding something instead of taking something away. And there's always a push and pull, a yin
Mm-hmm.
and yang. So yeah.
Well, and even on that, like, I was thinking about, yeah, the idea of a ritual, right? Coming back to that idea, but even in this, there's a point at which I'm reading through these, where there's a part of it that's very personal, right?
Yeah.
It's invited into a personal world of yours, and there's also, like, I found it interesting too, the poems that contain the pronoun I
Yeah.
versus the ones that didn't, and where they were kind of placed. But at the same point, when I was reading it, there was always a sense that there's something larger being spoken into here,
Yeah.
right? And for you, what is that larger thing that you were really speaking into here? I mean, maybe you've touched on it a little bit, but specifically in that realm, was there an aspect of humanity you were seeing that you saw that could be different? Is that what you speak of with these alternatives?
Yeah, I mean, to really access God
Mm-hmm.
and to not just think about him slash her slash whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But to really, so what I did back there, I was like, what do I have to work with that could create something, spark something that would lead me somewhere else? Um, and to really think about God that way, like, um, what do we have to work with? We have all these religions and customs and rituals, you know, really taking what's valuable about that personality that unites all things,
Mm-hmm.
um, and experiencing it with a human touch, I think was very key into what went on into this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of, you know, everyone says, like, well, if you follow God, you'll never be successful, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's kind of funny because I sent this to Nicholas Clemente at DFL. He's a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I'm sorry, we can't publish this because it's a poetry book and we've put out too many poetry books. Sorry, no more poetry. We hate poetry. And then he read it and he was like, okay, this fits the mission. This is messianic and this is maximalist. And I've said the catchphrase and now it's been spoken. The secret catchphrase, maximalist and messianic.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, let's make it a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and with that too, a question coming to my mind, but I'm just trying to make sure it comes out in the way that's fruitful, like you're saying, positive in the sense of maybe shaping forward or doing something, right? Not just happy-go-lucky and
Yeah.
all the tropes that follow with that. But is this collection and this you putting it out, is this maybe a testament to almost like a mission in life for you that you're coming into, like your own personal mission?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very helped by the angel Raphael.
Mm-hmm.
Just center a life around healing.
Mm-hmm.
Healing is such a rich, vibrant, inclusive concept that we're able to grasp as humans.
Mm-hmm.
And to live a life where you're cut off from that is just, I was there for a long time. It's way too much for anyone to be able to handle. And I was in the wards, I had blow-ups, I
Mm-hmm.
had things that people don't want to talk to me anymore. So I had to really reach out and touch a place that was going to shape my narrative. And I read the book of Tobias, which includes the angel Raphael, archangel, and he's the angel of healing. And it's this very quirky story. It's like a Hallmark story in the Bible where the son Tobias, well, first of all, the father Tobias, he gets blinded because doves shit in his eyes.
Okay.
And in order to cure this blindness, the son Tobias wrestles with a fish. And I love fish. I'm a Pisces, as mentioned previously. They wrestle with this fish in the water, and Angel Raphael is like, catch the fish by its gills. And he gets the fish, and he basically uses the fish to cure a demon that's been infesting his cousin Sarah, who has been infected by a demon of lust. And it's been killing all of her husbands. She had 7 husbands, and they all died. And so the fish is used the liver is boiled in order to dispel the demon. It's a very incenseful image um, of that demon dissipating, and I had that consciousness kind of roll into me like, steeping in tea or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the demon is gone, and it's very potent and powerful, and it's like all up in your face. The demon is finally gone, and the father's blindness gets cured by the young boy rubbing the fish gall into his eyes. And that's the story of the book of Tobias. And what impacted me was a lot of stories in the Bible. It's kind of like, this guy is this way and he does this thing because he's like this, and that's cool and all, it works. But for the angel Raphael, it was kind of like he had this whole narrative and backstory and really different, very quirky, um, like humor and personality that got through the narrative. And it was very much as if the author was saying, like, this guy could be anything. And like I've thought, like I swear at times it's like I can sense it comes through like a narrative, like a guy in the psych ward um is talking to all the psych ward inmates, trying to piece the story together. It's like I'm a detective, it's like I don't know, a great 90s detective movie or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like all of these things are working. So why call my brain incurable? Why call it broken? I mean, it's as much as anyone can do their thing, I can do my thing, and take it or leave it.
And is maybe that part of the mission that you found during this time? I want to first draw on the tea metaphor, right? Like steeping in tea. Like most of the time when you make tea, you don't make it in lukewarm water.
Yeah.
You don't. It's not jacuzzi temperature where it's nice to sit in. It's usually piping hot and could burn your skin.
Yeah.
And I think about that, of being surrounded, both the tea leaves surrounded by piping hot water, but also for you being in a place that is not easy to be in.
Yeah.
Not easy to wrestle with. And you're surrounded by people who maybe not in the traditional term or in the normal term of needing healing. The healing might be a little different. I think that's maybe what you're drawing on here.
Yeah.
But that's also a lot of distraction, right? That's a lot of, I don't know if you want to call it energy or intensity or whatever it might be that surrounded you. But is that where you kind of found your life mission in a way? And this is, again, coming back to that testimony of this is you living it out and proving the people wrong that said that you were somehow uncurable or you somehow had a broken mind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like healing is like a comet. Like a comet only comes, once every 76 years. I don't know when Halley's Comet comes, but once every however many years. It's like, you just gotta stand out and you gotta be there. Like you just gotta show up and notice that it's gonna be there. And if you're inside, if you're doing random things to structure life a different way, or attending to your business that's not really like entirely relevant to the comet, you're gonna fucking miss it. Yeah. And another thing is like the idea healing can come any different way. You never know what's going to click with someone and what's going, you get certain ideas when you meet people and you vibe off of them, but you never know what's going to unlock mystery for them. So it's a very, mysterious process that that thankfully a lot of media does reverence, even if it's like, oh, the doctor walks in and he does this, and then then the guy has a heart. Even if it's reverenced in a way that's kind of sly or kind of like unimaginative, that still activates the part where you're like, yes, healing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that, I mean, like is that just another hope for this as well? For you, Ryan, in particular, is, yeah, maybe not just the people that are in a situation like you were in, but really for anybody that, I think especially as I've gotten to know you, there's an openness to you of, I don't know the word for it, but I've noticed this with you, that it doesn't matter the background of someone's struggle or suffering.
Yeah.
That's kind of an irrelevant part, that you don't even have to be at, if you're at the bottom of a pit or you're just starting to sink into it, that so much isn't the important thing. But again, coming back to that hope for everybody, that they could have that moment of, like you just described, of yes, like this is healing.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a fantastic thing that, when you see a movie that you think everyone should watch, you go and tell everyone. It's kind of like that. I saw this great movie by Archangel Raphael, and I'm like, fuck it, everyone's gotta get into this. It's fucking good. Like, I mean, it's like, I don't know, however you think of psychedelics, it's like, sharing a bunch of mushrooms with people because you thought it was a really fucking amazing experience. And I wouldn't, there are times, people think I'm a little pushy, and I know that. I think they think I'm a little like, my healer's personality tends to push people into things. It's like, do we go into the sketchy part of town? And it's like, yes. But, there's people who appreciate that and people who don't. But, I just saw the movie 28 Years Later. And in it, Ray Fiennes plays a death shaman. And, Michael Borth, the other writer on DFL, I mentioned that to him, and he was like, that might be a viable career option for us coming up.
Is what exactly?
A death shaman.
A death shaman.
Yeah.
Well, and does that have to do with this kind of, I don't know, an ethic or a way of being of sometimes we need to be a little pushed?
Yeah.
And we can't,
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we just really need to jump into that mystery. Like Anna Krvolopova has those jumps in her writing. It's like, come on, people, we can fucking take the leap, It's like we didn't progress all this way for just to have bland shit all the time. I think everyone could agree on everyone wants to think that their minds are capable of understanding, great works of art, great works of poetry, and because they really are at the base level, like all it takes is the commitment, all it takes is focus. All you have to do is jump in. It doesn't have to be like, oh, am I following the author's interpretation? Am I getting what I'm supposed to be getting out of this? It's like, whatever you get out of it, that's what you got, and be glad for it, because you were there experiencing it at the same time. Just be happy that you're fucking there, That's where I get a little pushy.
Yeah. But does that also, I mean, I can't help but think about the experience you've your own experiences that you've had to draw upon, right? And this way of looking back of what you've been through, and like, were you pushed with some of these stories you brought in today and some of the experiences that you had? Was this an example of maybe it wasn't the best way for you to be pushed, but nonetheless it pushed and you responded in a way that you're proud of now?
Yeah. I mean, ideally, things would have looked different. I think, everyone who could see my life would probably agree on that, but it's like I said, I came up with that method. It's basically just like the scientific method kind of dumbed down and reworked for a human personality instead of, I don't know, scanning over rock formations. But it's like, what do I have to work with? How can I how can I twist this to my advantage? How can I truly bring this to something that's accessible to me? And I have a very particular way of thinking. What I think is accessible is way different than what someone else would think is accessible. But how can I navigate this towards a place where everything in this book, everything in this movie I watched, everything in this interaction with my friend is just vibing? How can I invite, through the window, all the waves of experience in a way that will land in a person's heart? And I get very impatient and pushy when that's not happening. I get kind of babyish.
Well, and does that signal maybe a wanting for the other person, whoever it is you're coming across or meeting with or reading this book, of that whatever it is for them is right in front of them?
Exactly. Yeah, I want them, if there's something in their heart that their soul is reaching for, I want them to have that. That goes for anything. I mean, I don't know. It goes up against the law, but I really feel like anyone, if it's in their spiritual capability, then it shouldn't be hindered by physical things, because it's all passing, so why not, even if that puts me in a position of discomfort, that's part of my godhood or whatever, is to go through those psych wards and experience the place where I'm at a disadvantage. I have to be like, okay, here I am experiencing this thing that sucks ass, but how do I, how do I get back to my advantage? And that's the tug of war that both sides are playing. But it's not really about which side wins. It's about, elevating the tug of war to various levels, and I feel like, if we're gonna play the game where this reality is the only thing that matters, which is the narrative that is constantly being pushed, even though there are all these dreams, all these works of art coming from all across the world, if that narrative is being pushed, like, what if we take that way too far? And we already have, so what's the point?
Well, and for you, though, is this, I'm thinking of a few things here, Ryan, is like I think I've come to know that you're a pretty humble person, right? In some regards. And I think one of them has to be with, I think for everyone understanding, is that you're going from a place where people in authority with a lot of influence and who held a lot of power, um, yeah, they pretty much resigned you to a life of a ward. I mean, that was it for you.
Yeah, that
right?
was. Yeah.
Nothing curable.
Yeah.
Nothing can be done about this. And
Yeah.
then now today, though, you're living with a lot more freedom. You're
Yeah.
day to day, you're proving people wrong just by daily acts of service to yourself and others.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking about where you're going in August to the Maharishi School. And what is it specifically that you're going to be studying?
Cinematic arts and new media,
Mm-hmm.
filmmaking.
And is that the next medium maybe for you to kind of, like you talked about, like diving straight in it? What did you say? Go for it or leap straight into it?
Yeah.
For you, I know you've dabbled in this, and this is something there, but yeah, does this speak to like a continued commitment in your life?
Yeah. So, I'm gonna be pushing things to the next level. I'm gonna be, in a position where I'm not entirely comfortable saying like I have authority. On this page, I can be like, this is the moment coming through to me, and it's just me, a pen and paper.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be in a situation where I have to be like, it's my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta be telling people, you gotta do this, you gotta do this, and it's all gotta work, but it's gotta be that same present moment where you're coming through on the page. And I've seen Paul Thomas Anderson's interviews. He's a fucking mastermind, a
Mm-hmm.
creative genius, and powerful personality. He's very humble too.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen him talk about where he's like, the only thing that really matters about a movie set is the script. That's not exactly what he said, but he's like, my job is to write the script as a director. And, I've been carefully forming these scripts that I want to be seen, created into movies by me. And they very much take a lot of those leaps where you're in one segment and a completely different segment comes up. And I was inspired by Linklater's Slacker, and just to have a movie where there's the narrative is the movie, but what you're seeing on the screen is kind of like a scramble or a cooking of various things that just work together. I mean, it's kind of just the idea behind it is just having the ability to take over and let loose, but be together about it.
Have you worked pretty hard to get yourself to a point where you can let yourself loose a little now?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I was really inspired by Materialists. I've been going to the movies a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like nearly maybe like 3 times a week seeing a movie. I saw Materialists, and it opens with this very impressionistic segment about, it's a rom-com.
Mm-hmm.
I think the director was like, no, it's not a rom-com. But it starts with this segment of a caveman and a cavewoman, and the caveman is bringing her flowers, and everyone else in the movie got up because they're like, am I in the wrong movie? And I'm sitting there, I'm just like, she's just trying to do a thing. And that's basically the idea behind me crafting these films that are going to come out, in the projected future somewhere, and it's time and space far away. the idea is like, I'm just trying to do a thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ryan, as we talk through really all this, and I'm thinking about, well, yeah, this idea of well, you as a person are just compelling, but when you pair it to the background, right, that yeah, it wasn't in a random place, it wasn't at a random time, but this idea of healing and changing culture by healing in their own unique way. What would you say motivates you now, today in this present, and drives you for your next chapter, your next work, whatever it might be?
Yeah, my body.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel it in my body. Like when healing is happening, it's like there. And I've had this idea for a few months. I'm not really sure what to do with it, but basically, like, the idea is like, what if in some areas, what if my body is smarter than my soul? What if my body is accomplishing what needs to happen in a way that's more fruitful than the all-beingness of my eternal whatever soul? You know, what if this temporary experience of cells organizing is leaning towards a certain thing that's, you know, better than my soul? But it, you know, I mean, that's coming from years of just focusing on my soul and forgetting all the other aspects to living. And I learned when I was Catholic, you know, you have to take care of your body, you have to go to the doctor, you know, you have to nourish your body like you would nourish your soul, because it's, you know, it's your vessel, it's taking you somewhere, and you got to be good to it.
And is that drawing onto this what you were stepping into when writing this? You talk about that present and this, maybe this plane a little bit of, is that something you're coming to now find something that's a little bit more concrete for you in a way of, although this time period might be temporary, although this vessel might be temporary, it's worth considering. It's worth stepping into.
Yeah, it's the new organics for the flickering world, and that's like us, you know? It's like we are the bodies, and how do we want to be showing up for this, you know, party that we're all part of? You know, I mean, there's various ways to act at a party, you know, pick and choose your one that's, you know, gonna get you laid.
Find the thing that's your thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, all right, Ryan, I know as we come to the conclusion of this, I've asked a lot of questions, and this isn't me prompting you to ask a question, but I'm thinking, is there any questions that you wish you were asked during this last time, or something else that maybe you want to bring forward that I didn't ask into?
Well, I wanted to bring up Becky and the Birds because they're fucking great. And we got that in earlier, so I don't know what to say now. But yeah, Becky and the Birds, go listen. Stop this interview and go listen to them. I know we're at the end, so it's not as impactful as me saying it in the middle, but you've reached the end now, so you can go listen to Becky and the Birds.
Right on. Well, Ryan, now, before we exit, though, how can people, maybe, this is funny that I'm asking it here as well. Both you and I are kind of anti-structuralists, I think, in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah, where might people be able to find you outside of just this work, and where might you want people to find you as well?
Invite me to your parties. Like, I mean, any parties was a thing that was on Twitter for a while. And I don't know, catch me at the beach. I don't know, just go out there, think about me a little bit, bring my book. And you know, I'll be wherever there's, you know, light going over water or some silly sentimental thing like that. You know, but I'm also here, you know, so call me, Twitter DM me. Yeah, I sit there at my phone and I'm like, Why I'm sitting through this shitty movie and nobody's texting me?
So they can find you by texting you.
Yeah, well, I mean, first DM me. I mean,
Yeah.
if you just randomly text me out of nowhere, I'd be like, how did you get my number? Are you an angel? And then I'll fall in love with you forever.